Thank you. Well, I want to welcome everyone to our Coffee and Conversation. We try to offer these monthly webinars to be informative and educational and not be too long. So my name is Cecile Holt. I'm a partner and private wealth advisor with Arjun Bridge Advisors. And I'm joined today with Jason Shine. I'm very excited to have him as our guest of honor. I'd like to thank everyone for taking the time in your busy day to join us. I'm really hoping that you'll get a lot out of today. We have a lot of attendees, so very, very excited. I'm going to be asking Jason a few questions, but at the end of the webinar, please do not hesitate to ask questions. This is really why we put these together. It's your opportunity to ask questions to the various experts that we bring on. So please fire away. And before we get started, I'd like to mention that all of our webinars are recorded and archived on our website. So please go there and feel free to suggest any topics that are of interest to you. So Jason, he's actually my own business coach. And I'm very, very excited to have him because he's helped me on many levels, and he's especially helped me with gaining clarity, not only professionally, but also personally. And I think he's going to be able to answer some valuable questions here. So, I think I'm always thinking of you helping other people figuring out what their path is. But would you mind sharing really quickly how you became a business coach, how you found your path?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'll give you the 2-minute version. I know we have limited time, and this is a 12-year development for me to get where I am today. So my background, I actually got started out in real estate. So in 2009, I got my license and was selling real estate up until 2011, 2012 timeframe, when I was asked within my brokerage to start mentoring and coaching other agents that were entering the business. So I had the opportunity to actually build a coaching program and a mentorship program with that brokerage. And about 2 or 3 more years into it, I think it was, we were having this meeting one day, and it was a leadership meeting with the top agents in the office, and it was for vision boarding. And the question was asked, what is your big why? And probably 90% of the agents in that room were having trouble answering that question. They were highly successful, making great money, great income, but they didn't have a clear answer as to why they were getting up every morning, doing the activities and getting the results. And that was an aha moment for me, because I had the answer to that question, because I had spent some time thinking about it prior to that. And it showed me that you can be successful, you can achieve results, but there could be some missing aspects of that success in your life. And so that was my genesis moment for Real Smart Consulting, which is my consulting company. And 2015, I think it was, I launched the business as a separate business, and I stopped selling real estate to focus on helping other people get that clarity, to get that understanding of why they're getting up every day, why they're working so hard, so that they can have a life that's more meaningful and have a life that's more impactful.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say that, because you often think of financial planners, trying to get their clients to be wealthy, but what does wealthy mean? It doesn't necessarily mean that if you have a lot of money that you're wealthy. So I kind of see the parallel here that
Exactly.
What is success? It's very individual. It's not because you're the top producer in your branch that you're necessarily a happy producer. Or
exactly. And I'm asked the question, well, what is success? And I define success as finding out what you should be doing and then doing it well and doing it with excellence. So success for each individual may be different. Success for you may be, making great money on your job or on your business, but also having time for your family, or having time for some of the activities that you enjoy doing. Because it's very easy in our society to have success defined externally, but when you get home,
have that peer pressure of other people telling you what your success should look like instead of looking more inward.
Exactly. And so kind of going back to your original question of how I got to where I am today, it's been a development, it's been a process. I was actually having a conversation with someone just yesterday, and I was telling them that a lot of my development came through even just my coaching and talking to other people. I often say I get more
Eating your own
out of
cooking.
exactly. I get more out of the session than the person I'm talking to. So just being open to change, I think is so important, and that's been a big part of my development and not boxing myself in and
Sure.
defining myself externally.
Okay. Thanks for sharing. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
So the big question is, you often think of successful people as having a coach, if, and the conventional wisdom is if you want to be that really successful person, you have to have a coach. Is that true? Does everyone need a coach?
Yeah, great question. So that's kind of a loaded question as well. So everyone does not need a coach. Um, a person who hires a coach, there are a few qualifications for that. Now, you have to have the right attitude and the right expectations from hiring a coach. So if you have the expectation that the coach is going to provide you with the magic pill that you can take
Right.
and is going to shrink you to the right
You got to do
size,
your own homework, right? It's not going to happen on
exactly,
its own, right?
exactly. So that's the
Like the
wrong
magic
expectation.
diet pill doesn't exist.
Doesn't exist. And that's funny you say that because before real estate, I worked for the Federal Trade Commission, and a big part of the FTC was investigating false claims. And sorry, motorcycle. Investigating false claims, and a lot of the cases that we saw were for um, diet pills. And the reason for that is we have a society where people want to take the magic pill to get the results and not have to do the work that it takes to get there. And that's, I think, really essential to being coachable, is to know that, yeah, you can hire someone to help you figure it out, but you have to be ready, able, and willing to do the work that's going to get you the results. So a coach can help anyone, but you have to be ready for the coaching experience.
So how do you know what would be a triggering event to know you're ready? How do you know you're ready for a coach?
Yeah. So that question actually answers it a little bit. To know that you're ready for a coach, just going back to that word "know," and I'm always big on definition. So when you know something, you're aware of it, and having an awareness means that you have been open to seeing something differently. You've given it some consideration and some thought. So when you're ready to do that, when you're open, I think that's the first ingredient there. But also, I have these trigger words that I think give you an indication that a coach might be a good idea. So if you find yourself or you find others around you using words like frustrated, tired, confused, perplexed, unmotivated. So these are sort of, I guess, symptoms that something is missing. If you feel unclear or uncertain, those are times or words or feelings that indicate it may be time to reach out for help in essence. So those would be, I think, some of the biggest indicators.
And I don't know about you, but I almost feel like sometimes it's, what about if you see someone else might need a coach, but you want to be subtle? You hear them say all these things and you're kind of sick of being that person saying, well, I know you're frustrated. I've heard it like for the 10th time now. Can you go see a coach? Thinking of maybe
Yeah.
like a husband or a wife hearing their partner say that. Like, how would you be, how could you say, hey, you need a coach without sounding like almost offensive or without hurting their feelings?
Yeah, another great question. It has to be, what I found over the years that I've been coaching is that it needs to be a self-discovery. And there's strategies in communication where you can ask questions or you can present things to people in a way that helps it become their idea, as opposed to you telling them that they need something.
Inception.
Exactly. And Dale Carnegie was a master at that. And I think I've shared the book with you, How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Right.
And in that book, he gives strategies for doing that. But again, the person who is ready for coaching, again, it comes to an awareness. Of course, you saying, hey, you need coaching, that's the beginning of that awareness. But until they have that openness and they have that aha experience where it clicks and they realize, you know what, I am a little bit shaky right now and I do need some help. So it has to be a self-discovery. And I find that that's the best formula, even for coaching. Once you get into the coaching relationship, having all of it be a self-discovery. I don't want to get too ahead of any questions.
Right.
Now, but
And I mean, I feel like to some extent, maybe the reason why people are a little hesitant to hiring a coach is, I know you're not a therapist, but you still have to be somewhat vulnerable with a coach, right? You kind of have to disclose what your weaknesses are, et cetera. So how would you recommend you go about finding the right coach for you?
yeah, so there are a lot of factors that are involved in finding the right coach, the right fit. It's almost like having a key, right? So the coach can be the key to helping you unlock the door of achievement or of accomplishment. So you always want to get the key that's going to fit your lock. To do that, there are a few things to look for. You should always have conversations with a potential coach ahead of signing on with like an agreement to actually have that person as your coach. And the reason is you want to see how you feel after the conversation. I always have the goal of anytime I speak with someone, I always want them to feel encouraged. I want them to feel inspired. I want them to feel as if they can go out there and do what it is we're talking about. So when you're leaving that conversation, ask yourself, well, how did I feel after having that conversation with this potential or prospective coach? Did I feel beat down, or did I feel like I was built up? Mm-hmm. So these are sort of the things to look for and evaluate, and that takes time. You know, it's so easy to get on Google today, type in business coach or type in whatever area that you're looking for your discipline, and come up with a list of people. But it's really a relationship, and in a relationship, communication is essential. And I always say you date before you marry, typically. So have conversations and see how you feel. Make sure that there's not a communication disconnect, because it's easy to talk past someone or talk over someone. You want to make sure that they're talking on your level. They're talking to you and with you and not at you.
Would you say there's usually one uniform way of going about coaching, or will different coach have dramatically different approaches?
Yeah, so all coaches, I won't say all coaches, I would like to say all coaches have the same end goal in mind. And usually when someone's hiring a coach, they have, they want to get from where they are to some predetermined goal or destination. That's the goal. And just like driving in your car from your office to your house, there's probably a few routes you can take to get there. Some routes might be scenic, some may be a little more congested than others. You determine what that route is that best fits your personality, that best fits your methodology and way of going about things. And really, I think that's most important. Let's just find the one that suits you and the way you want to go about it.
This may seem a little counterintuitive, but I feel like another thing that might be pausing people from hiring a coach is the time commitment, right? I mean, you're hiring a coach to help you with an issue, but how involved does it need to be in your experience? Like, what should people expect? How much they need to put into this exercise?
Yeah, so I think a big part of coaching is accountability. And within accountability,
you help me with, but
and within that, you have accounting and accounting of time, accounting of activity, accounting of actions. And this goes back to knowing whether you're ready for coaching. Because if you're not quite committed to the time that it's going to take, and typically when I work with someone, it's once a week. So if you're not committed to having a set time to work towards your goals, because working with a coach is in essence working toward your goal. So if you're not ready to put that in, you probably
need to do the work in between, right?
Exactly. So you want to count up the costs before you begin, and just look at your calendar and say, okay, here's what I'm doing with my time now. Here's what I know it's going to take for me to reach that level of success I want to reach. And you just have to have an honest conversation with yourself. Am I willing to sit down with the help that I need to get me there? And look at your calendar and say, okay, well, Thursdays at 8 o'clock in the morning, I'm usually just watching CNN. Well, maybe that's a time that you can shift, and you're not creating more time, but you're shifting the time you already have, and you just do something different with that. And that something different might be the coaching. So just looking at your calendar and your what you're doing with your time and tracking all of that, and just see if you can shift some things around to make room for the coaching.
Mm-hmm. And along the same lines, like how can you best leverage having a coach? What's the very best thing, or what's the most important thing you can do in working with a coach, making sure that you do achieve that success that you have in mind?
The number one thing that you have to do with working with a coach, and really in every area of life, but is to set the right, have clear expectations. So if I'm going to hire someone to help me get somewhere, I need to be clear about where actually is. That's the number one thing. It's there are
Isn't that
people who will
something
hire.
that the coach can, sorry to interrupt, but isn't it
Yeah,
something that the coach can help you with at the beginning of the engagement, is defining what you're going to be helping with?
it is, but you
Or
typically have to have a coaching client, you have to have an idea
got
of
it.
at
Okay,
least an
that's
area
interesting.
that you want to change. So you may not know, um, let's say on the health and wellness side of things, just to kind of take it out of business for a second. You may not know that you want to lower your cholesterol to 140, but you do know that you want to feel better and be able to run
Got it.
without being winded. So the coach can help you figure out, all right, well, you need to lower, your cholesterol, and this is how you do it. But you have a sense that you want to feel better, right? So taking that back to business, it may be that, hey, I'm going home and I'm feeling tired, drained, and I don't have time for my kids. What do I need to do to change that? So that's where the coach can
Mm-hmm.
help you hone in on that and give you a better plan, and clarity around what it is exactly that you need to be working on.
Interesting. Yeah. So you have to have an idea when you come into the engagement, and then that can evolve or be refined or um,
Yeah, I mean, I use the example of GPS a lot in your car
mhm,
or on your phone. In order for that GPS to work, you've got to have your current location and you've got to have a destination.
right.
With that destination, you can say, uh, I want to go to Clyde's in Gallery Place, or you may say, I want to go to the Brooklyn neighborhood of DC. One is more
Mm,
specific than the other, but at least you're putting something in there to give that GPS some direction to help you get direction to get there.
mm-hmm. Interesting. Um, and oftentimes you think of business coaches are for top executives or entrepreneurs. Like, who can a coach help? Is it kind of, you know, you don't often think of people who are kind of working for a big S&P 500 company as needing a coach or anything. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I have a few thoughts on that. One, a coach it kind of goes back to defining the role of a coach. So a coach's job is to help, at least in my definition, is to help you to pull out of yourself what's already there, right? To help you to take those puzzle pieces, to sit them out on the table, group them, and start putting them together to form the picture you want to see in your life or in your business. So having that as the backdrop of the role and responsibility of the coach, you can then from there determine um, kind of the steps and the process to get there. I started talking. I kind of lost track of your question. I want to make sure I answer your questions. So remind me your question so I don't go off on
Well,
a
it's,
tangent.
can you help like an employee of a large company, or is it
Yeah,
coaching
yeah.
traditionally
So
more?
I've as a coach, I've worked with a NASA rocket scientist, and I've worked with a CEO of a company. So again,
Mhm,
the purpose of the coach is to bring things out that are within.
mhm,
So that can work for anyone in any area of life. So if you're in transition, that's one time where a coach might be beneficial, because it's going to help, because you're usually moving from an area that you are familiar with and comfortable with, and you're starting to go into an area of the unknown, and you haven't been there before. And so you either need a guide, or you need to have someone to give you a sense of confidence that you're okay with this transition. So that can be anyone. at any time. And I like to give the example, and I think this was kind of in your email that you sent out to everyone. You talked about Oprah Winfrey. You talked about Serena Williams. So different
Yeah,
industries
this is
altogether,
very,
but they're working with coaches. I think of someone like a Phil Jackson, right? Or in basketball, or a Butch Harmon in golf. So these are people who they had their level of success individually in their own. Like Phil Jackson, he won, I think, a couple of championships in basketball as a player. But when he
mm-hmm.
became a coach, he won, I think, 11 additional championships through his
Wow.
teams. And for example, Butch Harmon, he was Tiger Woods' coach in golf, and he's coached a lot of other, like Phil Mickelson, some other golfers. So as a golfer, as a PGA professional, he only participated in one major championship. I think it was the 1970 U.S. Open. But through his coaching, he was able to help those players, just with Tiger Woods, win 15 majors. So
Wow.
the role
Yeah.
of the coach is bringing out of the individual the gifts and talents they already have. It's clear that Michael Jordan is a better basketball player than Phil Jackson, but Michael
Mm-hmm.
Jordan would not have achieved the level of success that he did, more than likely, without having the coaching of someone like Phil Jackson. So
Mm-hmm.
whether you're in accounting, whether you're in dentistry, you're in physical therapy, whatever it is, having someone to help you extrapolate and pull out of you all of all that untapped potential is, I think, essential to reaching that level of success that you want to have.
Mm-hmm. Is there a difference between a life coach and a business coach? I mean, one sounds more holistic than the other, but I feel like it's hard to differentiate what is what. Is there a
Yeah,
difference? Or?
there is a difference, and you actually you answered that a little bit with your question. So with a business coach, it's focused specifically on business. With a life coach, you're looking at more of the big picture. Business may come into play there, but you're looking at things like health and wellness. You may be looking at finances. You may be looking at whatever that goal is that that person has for their life. And maybe just figuring out why they even exist, what's their purpose, why they're getting up every
Right.
morning with the life coaching. So you can have a coach for just about any area of your life. But you mentioned holistic. You said the word holistic. And a
Mm-hmm.
holistic coach is someone who is able to look at the business, look at the finances, um, look at the life in general, and from there help you put all those pieces together, and maybe not have the specifics of, for example, the business that you're working in, but they
Mm-hmm.
can say you probably need to be spending a little less time in the business, or you need to be coming up with more systems in your business to be successful. um, so a holistic type of approach, I actually like the holistic type of approach, because I don't have to limit myself to saying, all right, you got to make 15 phone calls, or you got um, to go on this many appointments for your business. But I want to say,
Right. So I feel like the two are connected, right? If
yeah, they are connected. They are connected.
especially in
Um,
this busy life of trying to raise a family and then trying to run a business, and
yep,
kind of hard to ignore one or the other.
it is. So they're all connected in some way. So when you hire a business coach, I was talking to someone yesterday. He's in real estate, and he has a real estate coach. So that's a business coach, but it's super focused on real estate. And he was actually looking for someone who was going to help him with some life things that he wants to do, um, some ventures he wants to do with philanthropy and things like that. So again, that's where it comes down to identifying exactly what it is that you want to change, or exactly
Mm-hmm.
what that area of transition is for you, and that will help inform what type of a coach that you're going to pursue.
Got it. And I noticed we actually are starting to have a lot of questions in the chat. So I might, because we're kind of talking about the different coaches and different engagements. Someone is asking too, do you only coach individuals or businesses as a group?
Me personally, or a coach in general? I'll
Um,
answer both
I
ways.
guess you can answer both.
Yeah. So coaches, um, personally, I do both. And the reason for that, typically I work with the leadership of a company, and when I'm working with the leadership, they often have either, I won't say complaints, but they have challenges that they may have with a team. And a lot of our conversation will involve the team. And at certain points, we have a conversation, say, well, it's probably best if we all have like a meeting of the whole where I can talk to other people in the team and I can talk to, whether it's a service provider, or administrative person, the mechanic, or whoever it is, we can all be on the same page. The leadership of the company, their job is to project the vision and the mission. And what happens oftentimes with leadership is that that mission and that vision, it's in their core, but some of the others, either staff members or team members, each person has their own individual motives, motivations, motivators, and they're not connecting to the big picture, the corporate picture. And so when I come in with group coaching, it's helping each individual, whether it's leadership or some of the support, helping them all to plug in their individual interests and passions into that corporate mission and vision. So it can be both, as the short answer to the long.
In your opinion, are both effective, or is one better than the other, or depends?
Yeah, it's like the attorney answer. It depends.
Right, depends.
I think both are important, because I think everyone needs to be on the same page. But if you can get the leadership to become the coach, then it's not necessary per se to have an outside coach come in to talk to everyone. But that takes time, that takes discipline and commitment from the leader in order to make that happen. And sometimes it's kind of like the prophet's not honored in his own home, where the staff or the team may not be able to hear it from their CEO or COO or executive or boss. And they need to have a third party outside person come in to hear it, to see it more clearly. And then sometimes you may have staff or team members who are just not comfortable having certain conversations directly with a supervisor or leadership, and they're more open to having that conversation with an outside person.
Someone is asking, when looking for what personality traits should I be looking for a coach for a good match? Like if you're an A-type personality, do you have to look for an A-type personality, or is it good to find someone different? And a follow-up question to that is, what kind of questions can you ask to increase your chances of having a good match with a coach?
Great questions. So personality types, and I usually use the DISC, D-I-S-C assessment. You can, if you get two type A people working together, you may get a lot of heads bumping. But the coach is typically trained and able to adapt to make sure that they're facilitating the needs of their client. So it really is, the onus is really not on the client to do that. Personally, if I'm not a good match or a good fit for a person, I like to tell them up front, because it's easier and better to turn you down up front than to let you down in the future. That's my philosophy.
That can be a red flag in itself, right? Someone who's trying to push you too hard to engage them when it's clearly like already not, right?
Exactly. And again, you're not hiring a coach to be your friend. You're hiring a coach to help you get somewhere.
Right.
Are friendships possible as a result of the coaching relationship over time? Of course. But that shouldn't be the sort of the quality or the qualification. Also, you want someone who's
friends and family for that.
Exactly.
You're looking for someone unbiased.
Exactly. You want someone that's going to tell you what you need to hear as opposed to what you want to hear. So perhaps the person you're interviewing, maybe they don't rub you the right way, in the sense that they are telling you what you don't want to hear, but you need to hear. Don't allow that to discount or disqualify them from serving as your coach. Again, ask yourself the question, how do I feel afterwards? Because I think I left this out earlier, I also want a client to feel challenged after the conversation. So there's a difference between feeling challenged and feeling, again, beat down. So as long as I can inspire you to make changes that are necessary.
If you're not willing
But
to change, then what's the point of engaging a coach in the first place? Nothing's going to change. So makes sense.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. So with the personality types, I wouldn't limit it to um, saying it has to be someone opposite of my personality type or what have you. Again, have those conversations, those interview conversations, and just see
Mm-hmm.
how you feel after the conversation. You'll know. It's the same way you know when you're deciding whether or not someone's a good business partner or someone's a good friend to have, even. You'll
Mm-hmm.
know as you're talking with that person if they're a good fit. And again, just don't allow yourself to trick yourself out of having a good coach because you feel like they said something that you took offensively. There's a way to
Mm-hmm.
say things, and that's important. But just make sure that being challenged is not discouraging you from hiring that person.
Got it. Someone has an interesting question. Is it best to find a coach in your field, for example, real estate, so the coach can better assist you, or is it best to find a coach based on just experience?
Yeah, it goes back to determining what the goal, where are you trying to go? So someone
Mm,
who's in real estate, they may have years of experience. They already know how many doors they have to knock on to get a lead. They know how many phone calls they have to make. They know the scripts. They know the dialogues and all that stuff. So for that person, a coach that's specific to real estate may not be exactly what they need in that season. They may have a need for they may have a need for someone to help them with balancing um, work and home, or have a
mm,
need for helping them to communicate better, more effectively. So again, it comes down to what is the goal that you have? What is the result you're trying to get from working with this coach? I always ask the question when I'm engaging someone. I say, all right, so let's fast forward down the road, let's say 3 months or 6 months. What would have to happen in order for you to say that this coaching relationship was beneficial or worked? And if you can answer that question up front, it helps me or a coach to better map that out for you. But also, it makes sure that you have the right expectations and make sure that you're getting the right person that's going to get you there.
interesting. Yeah, and I'll just say I've engaged Jason, and we're in different industries. I mean, it's related but different, and it's been working out fine. So I guess it does depend on what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Someone's also asking, practically, what do I have to do to prepare before working with a coach?
Okay. So that's kind of a broad question, but I'm going to try to answer that and kind of bring it in a little more specific. Um, so going back and reiterating, you got to be open and coachable. That's number one. You have to have um, at least an idea of what you want to get out of that coaching relationship. The coach will typically have some sort of a process, whether it's a questionnaire, whether
Mm-hmm.
it's an initial interview or initial consultation session that will help you to get prepared before you start the actual coaching relationship. So the onus is really on the professional. It's kind of like going to, what do I have to do to get ready to go to the doctor? Well, you want to probably take a bath and get all um, and get cleaned up and before you go into the doctor for either surgery or whatever. But that person is going to help you to navigate that. So don't get caught up too much on preparing. Just be open, be willing, and be teachable. That would be I think those are the biggest things necessary to be prepared. And then let that person act as your guide to get you the rest of the way.
Mm-hmm. Someone has a question about the end of the relationship. Like, what are signs that you should terminate your relationship with a coach, or how long should an engagement be with a coach?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. That depends again on. So if I'm driving from DC, Washington DC, to Sacramento, California, it's going to be a longer trip, and it's going to take
Mm-hmm.
a lot more turns. But if my goal is to get from DC to Manassas, that's going to be a lot shorter. So again, it comes down to what is my goal and what type of support do I need to reach that goal. So I wouldn't put a specific time frame on it, but
It
some
depends.
signals, yeah, some signals though that it may be time to think about either shifting a relationship, or you may have graduated. If things are kind of stuck and there's no new excitement, there's no new aha moments, if it's sort of just the routine over and over and over and you're not growing, that's a sign that you may have reached. It's not saying the coach is bad or anything, but it may just be that that coach has gotten you where you want it to go,
You
and
need a
now
new spark, or
yeah, you may need a new spark, or you may just need a new conversation about where you want to go from here.
right.
I've had relationships. For example, I had one real estate client. She was, when I started working with her, she was working on a team with it. So she had an agent that was senior to her and basically her boss. She was stressed out. She didn't want to work for that person anymore. So over the course of a year, she got the confidence that she needed to leave that team and launch out on her own. And then from there, it was time for her to get the confidence she needed to build her own business and get to a certain level. And after a couple of years of working with her, we got to that point where, it was a mutual, well, I think you're there. And it's kind of like time to put on your, it's like the butterfly. It's time to leave the chrysalis and fly on, because you've reached where you're trying to go. So you'll know. You just have to look out for those type of signs.
Good. And I know we're getting toward the end, and if you have any more questions, this is your chance. But there's another question about maybe how are coaches compensated? I'm sure it depends on which coach you hire, but can you give us an idea of the types of engagement that you can choose from?
Yeah. So typically you have an hourly type of coaching relationship where you may hire someone on sort of an as needed basis, and you may not have a regular time frame, but you may just say, all right, I want to achieve this goal and I need to have an hour here, an hour there, where I can kind of bounce ideas and get accountability and things like that. So you may have an hourly type of engagement. What I typically work with is having more of a quarterly type of engagement, where it's like you say, all right, we're going to take 3 months to get to this point, and then we're going to take another 3 months, and we kind of do it at that type of a pace. And you have some where it's like a year agreement, where you say, all right, we're going to be in this thing for the long haul, and you're going to sign an agreement for a year. Here's what the goal is going to be, and what we want to have as the results after that year. So it really, again, it depends on who you're talking to as a coach. And there's not one that's more effective per se than another. It comes down to what your goal is. But these are some of the typical. Yeah, but those are some of the typical formats.
One thing I'm curious about is, has COVID changed anything in, in the coaching engagements? I'm thinking in financial planning now, people don't necessarily have to look for the guy down the street, right? They can just look for, the best advisor that will have the best knowledge about what the client's issue is. Are you seeing the same thing in coaching, where basically anybody
100%
can you from anywhere?
Yeah, 100%. During COVID stay-at-home orders, I worked with someone as far as, where was she? I think I worked with someone in the Philippines. I think I worked with someone.
It's funny, we had someone in Manila the other day.
Oh yeah. So it was funny because I forgot what the other person was, but we had to coordinate. I think I was coaching at like 8:00 at night just to make sure I accommodated because of the time zones.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's made it more normal to have coaching relationships like on Zoom. I was doing that before as well, but I always liked having the in-person face-to-face where I could. I'm sort of an analyst where I analyze just about everything, facial expressions, hand placement, things like that. So I can't do that as much with Zoom as I can being in person. So that shifted a bit during the stay at home, and it's pretty much, I think, opened up a lot more doors opened up a lot of more minds, because a lot of people were hesitant to have virtual meetings, but when it became sort of mandated, they were forced to be open to it. And so it was actually a sort of a blessing in disguise in a sense. I hate saying that because so many people have
Right.
been impacted by it. But I think it's opened up a lot more opportunity, not just for the coach, but also for people who would not have engaged coaches previously.
Right. And time is so precious. I think if you can just, get on Zoom and
Yeah.
talk for 30 minutes versus having to commute for 30 minutes and have a 30-minute meeting, and it turns into an hour and a half. So
It's much more efficient this
right.
way, let's say. Yeah.
Good. Well, let's see. Do we have any other questions? Anything that we didn't ask you that you wanted to talk about?
Yeah. Actually, I think something came up in the chat just now. Yeah, I would just say if you're considering coaching, like if you're on here, then that means you probably have something that piqued your interest in coaching. I would say don't end there. Keep taking the next steps. Researching people who would be perhaps good fits for you. Having, if you see someone who's having a level of success that you want to either mimic or reach.
It just oh, I think I'm not sure if it was me or you, but my screen froze for a second.
Oh, okay. I'll kind of repeat.
Oh, it looks like I'm getting a message that my connection is unstable. So it was probably me. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Well, I was just saying that, take the next step. I would say continue your research. If there's someone in your industry or someone around you that you see is seems to be balancing pretty well, ask them if they have a coach, and then maybe talk to them and see who their coach is, and have a conversation with that person. I think referrals and just getting connections from people you know and trust already, and whose lives you can witness and see that they are having
right.
success.
You mean don't trust the ad that says you can double your revenue in 2 months without doing any work?
Exactly. That's exactly what I mean. Exactly.
Oh, good. Well, thank you, Jason. I don't think I see anything else. What I want to say is, if you're interested in reaching out to Jason, we'll be sending a follow-up. So we'll have his contact information, or reach out to us, and we're more than happy to connect you with him. He's a wealth of information. And I know he's helped me tremendously in the past few years. So can't recommend him enough, but definitely think coaching is so valuable. So thanks everyone for dialing in. And then again, if you've missed any of this webinar, just remember that you can go on arjunbridge.com and find archives there. So have a good day, and we'll see you next month.